Hello, everyone. I'm Stephanie Boozer with CUGC HQ, and I'm so happy to welcome you to today's user share webinar with Owen Reynolds. We've got some automation we're going to talk about. I know there's been a lot of excitement around this topic, so I'm going to jump right in just a second. I'm going to go over a couple of quick things for you. For those of you who are interested, our Women in Tech Mentoring program is taking applications until next week, September 30th. So if you're a woman in technology or you know of a woman in technology who's looking for a mentorship program, this is a great one. They work on technical goals, professional development goals. It's just a really great program, and like everything else with CUGC, it's free and it's amazing, if I say so myself. So definitely check that out. Also, be sure to check out all of our ongoing CUGC events. All of our local groups are still meeting online, and we're still having our virtual Excel events. So, for example, today, a little bit later today, our Bay Area group is meeting, and we've got more stuff coming, as you can see on the calendar. October 7th is a particularly busy day. Our next Excel event is the Southeast Excel. It is a mostly like most of the afternoon. You can see lots of great speakers, good time to network, learn something new, and just hang out with your CUGC friends. All right. Also, if you have missed some of our webinars, I don't know if you know, but you can always go back in time and watch them. We have a full library of recordings at mycugc.org. Once you log in, you'll see that files in the navigation tab up there, and just click on that and go to recordings, and you can see all of the webinars we've done back to 2015. That's a lot of webinars. All right, minor housekeeping details for you today. We are recording today's presentation, and you will get a link to this recording. It's going to come via GoToWebinar through an email, so be on the lookout for that. It'll come sometime tomorrow. Also, we'd like you to submit your questions at any time. Put them in the chat when you have them, and we'll take them as we can during the presentation. We'll try to get to all of them today. And finally, at the end, I'm going to put a link in the chat to a survey. It's short and anonymous and for CUGC use only. So be sure to fill that out for us. We just like to get your feedback. All right, so who do we have with us? Moderating all of your amazing questions that I know you're going to ask is Leee Jeffries. He is a CTP and a consultant. Leee, would you like to say hello?
Hello everyone, I'm excited about this one. Owen's got some really cool stuff to show you.
Thank you, Leee. Leee, by the way, has a webinar coming up himself on October 23rd. So check out our events calendar for that. I think there's a link in the chat for you. Looking forward to that one too. All right, and Owen, time for you. Owen Reynolds is a CUGC member. He is a virtualization engineer with IT Intelligence, and he has written a blog post that actually I'm going to put in the chat for you right now that this webinar kind of came out of. There's a link to the post. And Owen, I'm going to hand things over to you. I'm going to get you your intro slide and then take it away.
Great, thank you very much, Stephanie. So yes, I'm Owen. I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, in Canada, but I currently reside in Montreal, Quebec, and yeah, I've been living here for about 5 years, and I live here with in my apartment with this little beast here. This is Coffee Bean. She doesn't have any IT certifications or any skills to lend, but she's a good dog, and she's been a great companion to have during the COVID lockdown. So what I'm going to be talking about today. So as part of the work that I do, so I'm a permanent employee of the ITI here in Montreal, but I do consulting. So at any given day per week, I'm sometimes asked to do 3 or 4 or 5 day projects, and sometimes that involves rebuilding an environment or doing things that involve repetitive processes with Windows, with Windows 10 and Windows 2019 or even older versions. So part of the, as you guys know, you probably know, part of the challenges that we've got with Windows is updates and I guess what you would call code drift. Not that I'm a coder, but in terms of configuration changes in code, there's a lot of ways to go wrong with setting up a reference image for EUC workloads, be they Citrix or any of the other companies that provide EUC workloads on virtualized platforms. So I had originally written one of the guys I work with, Jonathan Petrie, he's my friend and he works for the same company I do. He had mentioned to me in 2017 when I first met him to look into Packer. And I am a very judicious note taker. So sometimes people tell me things, including Leee. Like Leee has mentioned some interesting things to me that I write down, and I don't do them right away, but I try to look at them at some point. I think if it's worth, it may not be worth doing on the spot, but it's usually worth looking at some point. So HashiCorp is the company that they make a few different products, and one of them is Packer. They make Terraform and Vault and Bigger. These are product terms that many of you maybe have heard, but you might not know where they fit. So today's presentation is going to be focused on using Packer to kind of be your orchestration point for delivering Windows 10 and Windows 2019 reference images. I think I should have time to do both. I do like to talk a lot, but the actual end-to-end delivery is about 10 minutes, like from the moment that I click to actually create the reference image. So I can probably show both, but the main idea is to figure out your perfect settings, put them into configuration files, JSON and XML, and PowerShell, and then forevermore, those are your reference points for delivering images. And so what that means is that you could, like if you're like me and if you're tasked to visit a client and they ask you on a Monday, okay, yeah, we need to scale up, we need to deliver a Windows 10 remote access solution with Citrix on a Monday, and we're getting ready for the pandemic or round 2 of lockdowns in your city or whatever. You could take some of the code that I have, and I will be showing how to edit it. You could edit it for your environment, and you'd be good to go. So I'm coming into this process, like in terms of the configuration files and the process, and the blog post is longer than some of the other blog posts that I reviewed and borrowed from. I'm coming into it after about 3 years. It looks like Packer, to me, like this is just my opinion, but Packer looks to be mature in terms of at least in terms of VMware vSphere delivery. I haven't done it with Nutanix yet. That's something I'll look at later. But it does look to be mature for about 3 years. And so what I envision using it for, like I'm using it on my home lab right now, but the envisionment is for customers. So a customer says, okay, we need to get a reference image going. We need to, an English French image ready to rock. And as long as you've done some offline servicing to slipstream in your Windows updates, like potentially you could have a base image ready in an hour or so. So the presentation is going to focus on the base delivery, which doesn't have the image joined to the domain. But to be honest, I've been doing reference images for a few years, and like the bullet points that Stephanie has in the human error, hand cranking settings on your shell, choosing the wrong network card settings or choosing the wrong buy settings or whatever, and then the post builds, and then but the main problem is point 4. If you're not automating all of those clicks, like where you're waiting to put in a serial key or you're putting your time zone or all of these things which anyone can do, but you never know when they're going to pop, right? So if you boot up a shell, and then it says, okay, give me your ISO, give me your drivers, give me your EULA, what language do you want, what privacy settings, all of these ridiculous Windows settings, which Microsoft continues to ask for. Those can be automated via an answer file that you give to your Windows install. But the main thing is that Packer can act as your orchestrator for the whole thing, which I will show. So yeah, so Stephanie, if you want to make me the presenter, I will. I'll take over and I'll show you guys.
So Owen, just before you crack on, we've got just a bit of a query about your audio. If you could move a bit close to the mic, I think. Is that possible?
Yep. You might. Okay.
Excellent. And we've already got questions coming in, like what do you run for your home lab? Do you want to go through these now?
Okay. Yeah, let's do it. So you guys can see my screen, okay?
Yep.
Okay. So yes. So part of the presentation, like I titled the build, or the title of the presentation is about delivering your build in 10 minutes. So this is obviously an individual environmental timing. So my 10 minutes is based on having pretty good compute hardware. Like I've got, as you can see here, I've got Skylake. It's a desktop CPU. I don't have Xeon. I prefer to use desktop units. Some people, I live in an apartment and I don't have the benefit of a garage. Like Leee, for instance, you have a garage, you can put things in, but I don't. So I've used desktop computers for my lab for 10 years, 15 years. Every time I think about buying the classic, like the Dell R710 or R730, which is favored by lab enthusiasts, or the Supermicro stuff, the TN4 Supermicro stuff, I get put off by the noise. I'm pretty sensitive to noise. I'm not like super sensitive to noise. I don't have like a medical condition, but I don't like fans and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I just stick with these guys right here. So if I was to do it again, I would go with AMD Zen 2 or Zen 3, which I may do this year. But I also, I don't want to buy everything 3 times over again. So yeah, you can see here I've got 3 of the same. Like I bought 2 of these from eBay sellers in Georgia and Atlanta, Georgia, and the other was from Ontario in Canada, where I live. And then I repeated the same hardware purchases, the augmentation, which is the 64 gigs RAM, the network cards, and the storage, with a combination of Newegg, Amazon, and eBay. So yeah, and it's all like, it's kind of a mix of, I would say, like if you are looking to buy new, again, I don't work for Samsung. It's just an opinion. Everybody has opinions on hardware. I did try out using Hewlett-Packard based NVMs when I first started, when I first built my vSAN 3-node setup last year, and I got burned. So a little secret. Dell doesn't. There's only really 2 manufacturers of flash storage in the world: Micron and Samsung, and Intel, 3 actually. And different companies will rebrand from those, and they'll be certified. So VMware is big on using Dell branded stuff, obviously, because of the parent ownership, and Samsung is actually the OEM. So if you have to choose an SSD provider, be it NVM or conventional SSD, stick with Samsung. Like you might not see it on the VMware HCL or Citrix HCL for Zen server, but guaranteed you'll have better luck with Samsung. And then the same goes for Intel. If you have to choose network cards, I've been burned a few times with Realtek and some of these other providers, and Intel's kind of your best bet. But I would be happy to abandon Intel on the processor side, the Intel tax. And so if you don't have any home hardware and you're starting new, I would go with AMD Zen 3. But if you do have some existing Intel stuff, then yeah, these are great. These HP Elite desks, really, really nice. They look nice as well. I'm not the most aesthetically inclined person, but yeah. Now, the main speed advantage I have is I have a fanless, I can't pull the camera over to show you, but I have a fanless MikroTik 8-port 10 gig switch. So I followed the 10 gig home networking space for a couple of years. I was following, you know, Asus and D-Link and all these different companies which were promising 10 gig solutions for reasonable prices. But there was kind of this space where people were going on eBay and buying like old expensive Cisco or Raritan 10 gig units, and again, those things come with these highly obtrusive 80mm fans, super loud, consume a lot of power. MikroTik, they're from Latvia, which is somewhere in Europe. I don't know, Leee, where that is in Europe. It's a small country in Europe. So they produce fanless 10 gig units. So I bought it last year for about 300 Canadian, and then I bought the cables on fs.com, and I was good to go. So that's my main speed advantage. So if I pull up the properties here on these are my hosts. I have 3 hosts in my vSAN cluster, and as you can see, I've got a terabyte of storage in my vSAN cluster. So that's kind of how I you could achieve similar results in your own home lab. Like certainly, if you want to comment on my blog post and tell me how quickly you're able to do it. I'm definitely a big fan of NVM and SSD storage. Like I still maintain, I have one 12 terabyte data store at home in my ESX cluster just for like long-term storage and movies and music and things that I don't care to access extremely fast. But everything else that I do, be it my VM shells, my binaries, like my ISOs, everything is on 10 gig, and then that 10 gig is connecting to vSAN storage, which is so the limiter here, if you see, so these guys, the 970 Evo Plus, the read and writes are about 3,500 megabytes per second. This guy drops down to about, I think, 1,100. I don't have the specs in front of me. And then obviously the greater limitation would be 10 gig networking, which would be about 1,000 megabytes a second. So basically my storage is as fast as can be. If I'm doing local stuff, it's going to be really quick. And then if it's going to go on the network, it's going to be limited to 10 gigs which is 1,250 megabytes a second. In practical terms, because I'm running an N+1 vSAN cluster, I can my speeds are about 500 megabytes a second. So I'm really happy with that. Like that, it sounds like I'm losing speed, but that's only because of the redundancy. So for instance, if my little dog here, if she ran underneath my desk right now and she managed to disconnect the power from one of my hosts, I'd be able to keep going because of vSAN, because it's like it's kind of like RAID 1. If you're familiar with RAID 1, it has the ability to take one loss. That's what I have with my 3-node cluster anyway. Yeah. So that's a very long answer, but that's what I got.
That did answer the question. Oh yeah, a few people are keen for you to show them Packer.
All right, let's rock and roll. Okay, so let's go. So Packer is a it's a product from HashiCorp. As you can see on my screen here, you've got a bunch of these different products. I'm only familiar with Packer. The basic idea is that you configure a JSON-based. Well, sorry, let's start from the beginning. Okay. Right. So in a nutshell, I'm running Packer on Windows, but you could run it on Linux, or I'm not sure, they probably have variants for Raspberry Pi and OS X and all this type of stuff, but I'm running it on Windows. What is nice about it, and where I'm using what I didn't get into the full details of how I used to use MDT, Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, but where I'm using it is to replace an older WDS MDT deployment setup, which is, if you guys have ever used that, it's a lot more work to maintain. You have to maintain services, you have to install binaries and whatnot. What is nice about Packer, and I'm going to show you my configuration here. So you can see here, it can be as simple as just the Packer executable. At some point, you're going to have to have scripts, and you're going to have JSON configuration files and XML configuration files. But in a nutshell, it is just this. This is Packer executable. So it used to be that if you wanted to interface with vSphere environments or other environments, you'd have to download third-party binaries and plugins. Just gonna put my dog down. But what's happened recently is that the Packer open source community and the third-party developers who had developed the vSphere was a company called, I think it's an open source project called Jeffries. I'm not super familiar with what they do, but they basically rolled all of their third-party binary support for vSphere into the Packer executable. So you can see here, it's 120 megs in size, so you can download it in no time. And then your setup is literally just updating. If you're on Windows, which I'm assuming many of you are, all you're doing is adding an environment variable. I have logging enabled, and then you're just updating your path to include, where is it here? Path. You're just updating your path to include Packer. So once you've updated your system path to include Packer, that's about it. And even then, that's only so that you can call it from the command line anywhere you want. But other than that, it doesn't require any configuration. It doesn't even require an install. Like for instance, if I was to look at add-on programs, as you can see, I've got a bunch of stuff installed. Packer is not on the list. Yep. So it's very, very light on installation. Were there any other questions on installation, or can I get right into the config?
Sort of. There is one here for why did you elect to switch from leveraging MDT for image creation to Packer?
At the same time that I learned about, so as I said earlier, I maintain this list of like things to try. So another thing that my coworker, Jonathan Petrie, had mentioned that I should try was called OSD Builder, which is a PowerShell-based tool to do offline servicing of Windows. So you can take a Windows. I've done it with 2012, 2016, 2019, and Windows 10. You can take the ISO from Microsoft. You can download an evaluation version or a licensed version, and then you can slipstream in updates. I'm not going to cover that on today's call, but I do include on my blog post. There is a YouTube video which covers all of the steps. On top of that, CTA Julian Morin, he's German. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Sorry, Julian. He actually has an even more comprehensive article, which I can drop in the chat when I'm done on using. He has a script which adds some extra layers of automation into OSD Builder. So I was using MDT with manual GSM commands, and I just found it was a pain to maintain. And also with MDT, like I still have some of the remnants of the binaries on this server. You can see here I've got the deployment toolkit, which needs to be updated every time Microsoft releases updates, 1809, 2004, et cetera, et cetera. And then I just found the configuration, like if you look at the way that MDT is set up, it's actually, look at this. Like, I don't work for Microsoft, so I guess they won't mind me criticizing them, but they use WSF, like they're using VBS and INI commands to drive a lot of this stuff. And your own configuration, like if you're actually editing, all of the changes you need to make are driven by INI. And it's like, ugh, I remember I learned it last year, no, almost 2 years ago, and I burned about a week just trying to get it, because I was trying to get it down to one click, right? Just what I'm going to show you, y'all people. And it took me quite a while. And then I found that every time I wanted to do an update, or if Microsoft released an update, or if I slipstream in, sometimes I had to start right over again, and it just felt legacy. Like if you have MDT stood up in your environment with integration with SCCM, and you have people who are experts in it, that's great. But for me, like, it feels old. It just feels old, and I'm not like a pure evergreen evangelist type person. Like, I'm definitely cautious when it comes to new technology. I'm not going to jump on something that's released on a Monday and try it on the same day. Other than Citrix app layering, or UPL, which I did try. But regardless, generally speaking, I'm a bit cautious. But if you want to repeat, you want to come up with an end-to-end solution to deliver reference images or builds, I wouldn't go with MDT if you're doing it today. That's just me. Like I said, unless you have, because the problem is it's like technical debt. People in your team have to understand the ins and outs of MDT. And I never even did it with SCCM. My SCCM knowledge is very, I think I know the troubleshooting of the client and nothing else. So I would say, you know, just based on, like, I'm not re-downloading Packer for y'all, but yeah, you can download Packer and you can be started and very, very quickly. So yeah, let's go over it. So if you were to follow this process, I'm going to open up a sample template for what is required. So Packer requires three things. It requires the Packer executable to be extracted, not installed, to a Windows-based computer. You have to set the path, which I showed. And then the critical part is the JSON file. So the JSON files drive the configuration and the shell creation and the orchestration for Packer. And then the other component, which you can use or not use if you want to fully automate your build, is to use autounattend.xml, which is the older Microsoft. It's kind of the replacement for sysprep.nf, if you're familiar with that. So I'm going to be showing the sample configurations for both. The autounattend.xml, I do have samples of Windows 10 and Windows 2019 and 2016 on my GitHub. You'd have to edit them for your environment, but the editing is fairly straightforward. And in my blog post, I include like all the sections. So let's take a look. So one of the things that when I first tried to learn Packer a couple months ago, I didn't understand the floppy files. So HashiCorp includes documentation on their website, but they don't fully explain the integration and what happens when you actually start a build with Packer. So these guys here, like everything that what I'm showing in this presentation and these configuration files and whatnot, I wouldn't say they're optional. You do need to have certain things that happen. If you don't have these in place, then you're just clicking more. It's not like your build will fail. It's just that there's certain components which won't work. So what I'm gonna do is, it's 1:30 and I wanna leave time for questions. So I'm actually gonna start the build for Server 2019, and then I'm going to explain the functions of the file while it goes. Okay, so we're gonna click here, dude, where's my server? Okay, so this is a batch file which is calling Packer, and it's calling the configuration file. So what we will see, we go into vSphere. Okay, so you can see in this black text box, you may be wondering why I'm using a batch file. It was a little bit easier to make this funny little joke on the top, and it's just one line. So I'm going to make a joke about PowerShell versus command line. I love PowerShell, but there are times where using PowerShell is kind of like if you want to go to the store to buy some bread, and it would take you 5 minutes to walk there, and you could go in your car if you wanted to, but it would take you, 10 minutes to go in your car in comfort. I sometimes find that using PowerShell to do simple things, it sometimes takes longer. The engine itself adds a lot of processing time versus DOS batch. So what is happening here in the background is, as you can see, the VM has been created as per what we've asked for in our specification. So let's open up, we're going to open up the JSON file I'm going to show you. So I have asked for some specifications, which are here under variables. So I've asked for a 40 gig root disk. I've asked for 2 VPUs, and I've asked for 4 gigs memory. And then I've asked for a certain VM name. I specify my cluster. I specify my the data center and my vSAN, and then the data store, and then the folder, and then the network, and then I've obscured my password so it wouldn't be recorded forever and I get hacked 10 seconds later. So in the background, what's happening is if we go into our Packer builds, open up the remote console, so you'll actually see some of the orchestration has already been started. Pop, okay. Yep. So the first part of the process is the shell creation. So if I was to do this, like if you guys you're familiar with shell creation in vSphere, you know, you're going in here, you're saying, okay, I'm going to create a new machine. I'm going to say I like Dr. Pepper, as I do. I'm one of the few people in the world that actually likes Dr. Pepper. And then you're going to pick your data store. You know, I could put this on the stopwatch, but it's been about 10 seconds. I'm talking at the same time. I'm picking a data store. You know, we're about 30 seconds now. I'm picking some stuff. I'm going to pick, well, I'll pick Windows 3.1. Why not? Oh, look at that. They got a warning. Don't use Windows 3.1. Well, I like Windows 3.1, so I'm going to choose that. And then, yeah, you pick some stuff. So, and here I am. I'm at the end. So that took me, you know, 30, 45 seconds. The clicking through the prompts is one thing, but it's more the standardization of choices. Like, you know what you need in terms of resources every single time. There's no point in going through the wizard. You know you need this amount of space, this amount of storage. Like it's these things are like you work them out with your customer, right? But they're fairly constant, right? So that's part of my bullet point originally. For the fourth bullet point is going back and forth. You create the shell, you mount the ISO, you attach the floppy drives as you need them, you do all these things, you attach the answer file if you can, and you're going to be losing time because you're waiting unless you're staring at the screen. But I mean, we're in IT, we're constantly multitasking. We answer an email, we take a phone call, whatever. You burn time, you know. Whereas with this solution, because the shell creation is automated, you're saving about a minute, a couple minutes there. But what is really handy, right, is this is the definitive part of these lines 14 to 20 are, this is like the magic sauce of Packer. And this is what I did not understand when I first started to use it. I was like, floppy files, what am I mounting floppy files to a VMware shell? This doesn't make any sense. So here's where you can take your automation from one click, like in my case, it's one click where I just click, dude, where's my server? And then, you know, it started the process. This is where you go from one click to, or you keep it at one click, or if you didn't have the presence of these scripts and these configuration files, you'd be clicking more, right? So for instance, I'm doing a server 2019 build, so I'm giving it the autounattend.xml. Many of you are familiar with the answer file for Windows. So that's how these questions are being answered. What is your locale? What languages do you want? What keyboard? What privacy features? You know, what's your local admin password, et cetera, et cetera. These are all repeatable things. But if you were going back and forth watching the vSphere builds, or if you're using Nutanix or Hyper-V or SCCVM or whatever, you'd be burning time. Yeah, like I've done it manually, believe me. The last customer that I worked on, I did it manually, and you burn time. Someone comes to your desk, they ask you a question, you know, we're constantly distracted, right? So as you can see here, I didn't start the timer, but the log is running, so we can check the log when we're done. That the log is being updated dynamically. But yeah, we're at about 5 minutes, and we're already coming into the first login activities. So let's go over how this works. The floppy files are virtual. It's a virtual floppy drive which is attached to the shell. And by virtue of attaching it to the shell, I should still see it. If I look at the properties on my shell, which is called Win29 Packer. So if I look at the properties, I'm not going to be able to change them, but I can at least look at them. And yeah, you can see I've got two data store ISOs attached. One of them is the VMware Tools ISO, and the other is the Windows ISO. I cannot see the floppy drive. It doesn't show that, but I assure you it is attached. It is attached because there's no prompts on, as you can see, the lovely Microsoft logo. There's no prompts that have been generated, and it's going to log all the way into the desktop and keep going. So what that means is that this has been copied to a virtual floppy drive. So the way autounattend.xml works is the setup.exe for Windows, the various versions of Windows. It's hard coded to look in the root of any drive which is attached to the system, C, D, E, A, whatever. And if there's an autounattend.xml there, it's good to go. So it found that 5 minutes ago, and it's good to go. So the next thing that's going to happen is it's going to log in once with a local administrator account with a password, which I didn't expose to y'all. And it's going to run 4 PowerShell scripts. So these PowerShell scripts are amalgamated. I was looking on the community and some of the posts on the first post on using vSphere and Packer were from about 3 years ago. And I found about 6 or 7 different scripts. Some of them were DOS based, some of them were PowerShell, and I basically just put them all into 3 scripts. So the first steps is a bunch of common steps. I'm not going to open my VS Code to show you guys. You can look on my GitHub if you're inclined, and you don't have to use these scripts, but to me they do work well, both on Windows 10 and Windows 2019. This is the magic one. So I found some code on automating the install of VMware Tools. I've been installing VMware Tools by, yeah, you can see the first script is running right here. I've been installing VMware Tools, automated, semi-automated for years. There is a bug which has existed for many years with VMware Tools, even up to the latest version, which came out, I think, on the 19th, where it will install. So this is a funny thing about VMware Tools. VMware Tools is a set of drivers. It's also a service. So if I'm to look at any of my shells running in my vSphere environment, you can see if I go to the summary, configure, I don't have any alerts on this shell related to VMware Tools being not running. Whereas if I look at my Packer, you can see right here, I've got a message saying that the tools is not installed. So this was a big problem that I ran into when I first started to try to use Packer. So I was able to get VMware Tools installed, but the service was not running. So the drivers were good. It would connect, it would get an IP address, but it wouldn't install the actual VMware Tools service. So I was looking on the internet and I found some people talking on the VMware forums about this problem. And it's basically just, you can look at the code in your own time. I repurposed some of the code, rewrote it just for my own use with Packer. And you have to install it twice. If you try this at home and you come up with a better solution, definitely drop a comment on my blog. But I found that you have to install, uninstall, and install. So if I would like to get rid of this because then I could shave my my build times down by a couple minutes, I would think. But so in order for the full orchestration with Packer to work, the last part, which is here, as you can see, it's saying waiting for IP. The last part is okay, here we go. So you have to get the VMware Tools service running because the Packer instance has access to the shell that you're touching remotely via the vSphere API. It has to pick up the IP address. And then the last part is enabling Windows RM. So Windows Remote Management is a subsystem within Windows which is used to provision access to many, many things, remote registry, and more, in our case, PowerShell. So what's happening here is we're actually coming to the end while I was talking. We're not clicking restart on anything, but the Packer build has recognized the remote IP address. The VMware tool is reinstalled on the shell. If I was to go back and I hit refresh, it should show, actually it may not show. Yeah, okay, so the message was clear. VMware tools was installed successfully, so that's the drivers and the service. And Packer is done. It's done. So just while I was talking, it's finished. So let's take a look at how long it took. So let's see here, Packer log. Okay, so we started at 1:30. So it looks like we're, yeah, about 1:41. So about 11 minutes and 10. So not exactly 10 minutes, but yeah, a little bit, just a little bit longer than 10 minutes, 10. And as you can see, no questions. There's no questions asked at all. It's completely ready to go. What I didn't mention is that it's patched up to, as of 2 weeks ago, I patched it up as high as I could with OSD Builder. So not only have you delivered a shell, a Windows install with some basic settings which are useful, but you've also saved a bunch of time by slipstreaming in all those Windows updates. Because as you guys know, the first time you install Windows 2019 or Windows 10, the first thing that's going to happen is going to prompt for updates, right? So you not only, you have to, as a system engineer administrator, you would have to take some time when you're not doing Packer updates or working with a customer, at least once, your Patch Tuesday, once a month, you're going to take some time to update your reference image and then place it. I keep mine on my company's OneDrive, but you could keep them wherever you want. I'm using evaluation versions, and then I just convert them as I need them. But if you were working for a customer, you could take those ISO reference images and you could store them on some, NAS store or SAN store or whatever, and you could just update them once a month. And then all you have to do is just go into your vSphere data store or your SCCVM or Nutanix or whatever you're using. You go into your ISO store, and you overwrite your images once a month, and then your JSON file is programmed to look for a specific ISO, as you can see right here. So as long as you're just continually overwriting this guy, the server 2019 or the ISO once a month, then when that reference image is booted, you're able to you've got all your updates included. So I'm going to give an example now. Other people in the community are an advocate for complete rebuilds. I do some complete rebuilds. I wouldn't rebuild my domain environment to my file servers, but I definitely have become an advocate for rebuilding reference images. So an example, I had not touched Citrix PVS in 3 years. So I hadn't done anything with PVS, like even support or anything. And when I was refreshing my memory last week, I made some mistakes. So I chose some bad command switches. I just, I'm only human. I only memory. They say human memory is infinite. I don't agree. Maybe I was trying to remember too many RoboCop quotes, or I don't know. But I definitely have gaps in my memory. So I was faced with a situation where I was like, oh, I could try to dig through the registry and figure out what I did wrong with my PVS settings, or we do a one-click solution, just like here. I'm gonna do it. We probably have time in the meeting. I'm gonna start the builds and start the stopwatch. So yeah, here's my Windows 10 build. I'm starting it over again. And yeah, I let it fly, and then 10 minutes later, I had my image ready to go, and then I could reinstall my Citrix binaries. And I have automation, me and John, I should say, have automation scripts in place to cover a lot of application installs, or you could use automation framework from Trond, or there's lots of different ways to install applications. But for me, the biggest time suck with doing these golden images is the shell creation and the Windows updates, and that's where I believe the magic of Packer comes in. and in replacing MDT, not like, for instance, if you came to a customer and said, hey, we want to do some reference images based on, you know, some stuff that we know, but you have to do MDT, you have to do WDS, and you know, people are the customers. Some customers are not going to want to do that at all. Whereas you say, okay, hey, all you got to do is just give me access to, give me your vSphere or your Nutanix or Hyper-V or SCCM password or Azure or whatever, and your Packer executable, which is, as you can see, is 120 megs. And you know, they're going to be a lot more amenable to that. And this is, and by the way, this is something I will be probably doing for a customer, which I won't name next month. I know they're behind on their updates, and I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I think we have something we can give you guys to get you started, and I can rebuild the, and I would be doing this for Zen desktop controllers, storefront controllers, you know, maybe even KMS. Like, you know, this process is repeatable. Obviously, you don't need to run Packer every single time. Once you've got your reference image good, you know, good to go, you can clone it to a template, or you can clone it, which is what I do as well, right? So you can use your vSphere best practices once you've got it in there. But the orchestration, I would say, like I said, I'd be interested to know what other people are getting in their build times. Like I'm 10 to 11 minutes. I'm really happy with that. I want it to go down. If I can figure out how to not install VMware tools twice, then I could probably be at 8. But yeah, I do believe in the process. That's pretty much it. I'm going to let the Windows 10 build run in the background, but I'm happy to answer any other questions.
You've got a few questions. So,
okay.
Is there a JSON file for Zen Server and not vSphere? So, like, is there a Packer extension for Zen Server essentially?
Yeah, I believe they have support for Zen Server. If your environment is using Zen Server, I believe that's. I've never tested it. My next, because Zen Server is such a small percentage of the market share, I didn't take the time, and I don't have any spare hosts to convert to Zen Server at home. Actually, I don't know, Lee. Can you virtualize Zen Server in vSphere? I guess so. You can probably do that, right?
You can run it as a nested hypervisor if you want. I might be able to help you with that one. There are extensions for Packer for Zen Server as well. Yeah. But all the ones I've seen, they're all Linux based.
So I'm gonna make a note because I don't use Zen Server, but I'm gonna make a note to try that, because yeah, Zen Server and Nutanix are on my hit list next. Yeah, they provide tons of templates. Yeah, for Amazon, for Azure, for IBM, vSphere, all types of stuff. So I'm focused. I focused on vSphere because where I live, like in Quebec, it's very popular, and it's what I use at home. But that being said, it's certainly you know, nothing is much.
Okay, cool. You've got. Is there a way to get it to get Packer to pick the data store with the most free space?
Oh, I haven't done that. That is okay. I'm going to update my. Is there a way that I can track the questions back to the original people that asked them? Because I could answer, like I could answer it on my blog, but if the person's name was included, I could go and try to answer their question by email later on.
I'll make a note of them.
Okay.
So don't worry about that. I'll track them and I'll send it to you.
Yeah. I'm just going to bring up the shell so you can guys watch the magic stuff happen here. Okay. Any other questions?
Yep. You've got are those scripts for floppy drives pre-staged in the ISO, or is Packer transferring them?
Yes. So this maybe because I drank too much coffee before the meeting started, I probably skipped ahead. So this was my greatest source of confusion. What's the person's name who asked the question?
Mo Figuera.
Mo. Okay, so Mo, if I had known what I knew 2 months ago now, I would have saved a lot of time. So the way it works is the Packer executable is programmed with vSphere API support, so it can do whatever it wants to the shells as long as you permission it correctly. I think in my blog post I included the permissions which are required. You either log in, you either run the that you either choose your vSphere administrator or you choose a service account. In my case, as you can see, I have a service account, SA service account. But yes, what it's doing is it's taking the files which are contained here. So it's a bit confusing. Like when you look at some of the reference JSON files for Packer for vSphere, there was actually typos in a few of them that I found. So it's scripts. So the starting point is the path which you've set in system environment variables. C program files Packer, and then scripts, and then config. So the config, the autounattend.xml is copied over to the virtual floppy drive, and then these guys are as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4 different scripts. And then that floppy drive is connected until the first boot, and then it's tore down.
Oh,
then,
well, you answered a few there. So there was a question about whether or not the floppy drive gets removed. Yeah, I think you said the answer is yes, right?
The final piece of the Packer instance is like right here. It sits for between 5 to 10 minutes waiting for the final piece to process, which is to open up Windows RM. And then at that point, the last part of the orchestration kicks in, which is to disconnect the floppy drive and power it off. You also have an option within the JSON file to convert the template, which I am not doing. Yeah, so I set false on that. So if you were to download my JSON reference files from my GitHub, you could set that to true if you wanted to turn the completed image into a template. That's an option. I don't do that, but if you wanted to, you can do that as well.
Okay. There's a person here that can't access VMware remotely using a plain Windows authentication. Does Packer support all other authentication processes?
You know, I don't think I've done that. You're talking about like federated authentication, or if you were, I'm not actually, I don't know. Yeah, maybe, yeah, again, put me in touch with them by email. Like I said, I don't work for HashiCorp, so I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm an SME on it. I'm very comfortable using it, but I haven't had that use case. So yeah, Leee, if you want to put me in contact with them.
No worries, yeah. Have you tried leveraging this with WVD and Azure?
No, I don't have access to any WVD instances yet. I would like to, but it just hasn't come up. I would definitely be interested to try it though. So that would be with ARM templates, as I'm aware, WVD uses ARM templates. I think it's the same kind of idea. You're just, you know, actually ARM templates are JSON, right? I think, yes, I think.
Yeah, actually, Azure Image Builder is based around Packer, so you can almost use the same sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I would imagine it would work. I haven't done it, but like, yeah, my experience is more with yeah, just with vSphere.
Okay. The VMware tools install, is it an EXE or is it using the ISO?
What it's doing is the ISO is declared here, 26, line 26. So the VMware tools is mounted on the shell as a second CD-ROM. So you actually see on the shell, if I look at the properties on my Packer, because the install is not done yet, you'll see 2. So there's 2 data stores. The first one is Windows, and the second one is the data store. And then once it's mounted within the Windows, yeah, you can see here, I can kind of mildly interrupt this. This is going to be a bit challenging, as you guys know, if you're trying to navigate a VMware shell without the drivers installed. It's a bit of a pain, but yeah, you can see there's the second drive there. Yeah. So that's yeah, it comes up as drive letter E, and it's just running through the install. Yeah.
Do you have to have Power CLI installed for this, Owen?
No Power CLI required. The install, the actual install for VMware tools, it's fairly straightforward. I think I credited the person. This is it here. I credited the guy. I tried to make contact with him to ask him if he was okay with me using a script, but I didn't get a hold of him. Yeah, no, there's just a function to check if VMware tools is installed. It sets the location. In my case, it's always coming up as driver letter E, and then just running the classic setup 64. You know, I think this has been that way for 10 years, right? This particular process. And then what the magic part is at the end is looking if it's running when it's done. And yeah, I haven't, honestly, I've done dozens of these reinstalls and I still haven't seen a case where VMware was cleanly installed on the first go. And maybe a race condition, or you can read about it all over on the VMware support forums. It's been a problem forever. I don't want to speak disparagingly, but that's odd that you have to do it twice. I think it may be a situation where if if I put some type of a wait state in for all of the background Windows processes to finish, maybe it would people were using different workarounds, like installing the Visual C++ runtimes. Nothing works. You have to do it twice. That's it. So I don't like workarounds. I like solutions, but yeah, it is what it is. So anyway, so while we were talking, yeah, the Windows 10 build finished. So we actually did 2 builds over the course of the hour, and we can take a look at our timing. 1:45. Yeah, it looks like it was about 9 minutes. Yeah. So yeah. Oh, sorry. So there was the answer there about the final piece, which was getting rid of the floppy drives, the images, and CD-ROMs, and that's it. Yep.
Okay. There's a couple of questions here. One tip from a guy called Nathan Sperry. He does a lot of this stuff. He says, tip: use sensitive variables if specifying passwords are not variables in the JSON. They're then not written into the Packer log file. As plain text.
Okay. I'll make a note to switch over to use that.
Some other ones we've got. Okay. Do you use the autounattend to launch post-install scripts, or is it something else?
Yes. So let's. I know we're running out of time. I didn't get a chance to cover this. So the autounattend covers a bunch of stuff. Most of it is pretty basic. It's just your input locale. Actually, are we able to go over the 2 p.m. because we only have 2 minutes left, right?
That's
we
one
can,
for.
yeah, I was going to say we can do that. We can just let everybody know if what do you need to do? Like how far? Sorry, I'm mumbling.
Oh, like less than 10 minutes. Yeah, no, I'm okay to go over. I just wanted to check if there was a problem.
Yeah, as long as everyone knows. And you will get the recording tomorrow, so if you have to drop off, that's fine. I do have a trivia question for those of you who stay on, so you can win a CUGC shirt. So if you can stick around, please do.
Yes, so scripts. Yes, so there's various PS1s that are called, and I have them in order here. They're under the synchronous command section. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got a combination of registry commands, and then I've got calls to. This is the integration part, which took me a couple days to figure out. So these guys, 16, 17, 18, 19, these are all called in a specific order. They're called from the autounattend.xml. So, and they start getting, so you can see here, there's certain things like a lot of people, I'm kind of picky about the way my Windows installs are. I don't want check marks on things and that type of stuff. So there's a bunch of stuff that's called here. But the interesting part is the lines 164 to 178. This is where those scripts are called. And you can see they're hard coded to A. A is in A for alpha. So that's where the first part is the shell has a virtual floppy drive which is attached. That virtual floppy drive Packer copies over the 4 scripts, those are the 3 scripts and the 1 configuration file that we need. And then when Windows boots, the autounattend.xml is referenced again to call them back when it's done doing everything else. And then and as I said earlier, if you don't have that, then you're basically just going to have an empty shell waiting for you to do a bunch of configuration stuff, and you're going to lose time. But in my case, I just wanted it to one click. I gave myself a challenge. I don't know if it was a birthday challenge. I don't know. I just got it in my head. I'm like, I want one click. So, so yeah. So that's where I have these guys. I even have start. I don't join Active Directory, but I have a script which is copied over. That pops you if you want to join Active Directory, because that's encoding, getting automated Active Directory stuff to work in autounattend.xml was a little bit more work, and I didn't didn't invest the time to do that. So that's that. So the blog post is step by step. Like it actually covers like every single thing that you need to do to edit every single line on the XML and on the JSON to make this work as I've done.
Cool. And I think one last one here. All right, maybe two. I've used Automated Lab from GitHub in the past. Do you know if this would compete with it or complement it?
Automate. What's it called?
No, I've not heard of that one either. I mean, so.
Oh, let me look at it. Automate Lab.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's some sort of like orchestrated build directly from GitHub.
No, I'm not. Automate Lab. No, I've never even. So it's Automate Lab, like one word.
Automated Lab, sorry.
Automated Lab. German company? No, I don't. And when I search for it, I don't even. Maybe you can have them drop it in the chat. I don't. It doesn't. I can't even. When I search for it, I don't even find anything. But the answer is definitely no. Yeah, you have like Ansible and Terraform. Like there are competing solutions even from the same company to do the same thing. Packer was just the best documented. And again, I had the reference had come from my coworker and friend Jonathan Petrie 3 years ago, and that's why I chose it. I said, oh, he's the CTA. He's very connected. He's up to speed on tools, and I tried to stay up to speed as well. But at that time, when I first met him, I was working in a large corporate environment, and I wasn't totally clueless, but I was not fully aware of the wide world of open source technology.
Okay, and I think the last one was what skills do you think you need to use Packer?
You got to have good troubleshooting skills, a good knowledge of vSphere, the Windows build process. So for me, like I'm used to automating Windows installs like sysprep and autounattend, MDT. I had familiarization with that. But the other part would just be like, I don't know. I still feel it's a little bit like maybe I should go back to the HashiCorp, the documentations. But the main thing is conceptually to understand, like as I said at the beginning of the presentation, lines 14 to 20. This is what makes it magic, is the floppy files. So understanding that your automation is only as good as, it sounds weird that you're attaching a floppy drive in 2020, but it's a virtual floppy drive, but understanding that your automation is only going to be as good as what you put into your floppy files. So if you're, the skills you need, yeah, like just understanding I guess the main thing would be like where things happen in the Windows install. So when the auto attend is called, because it's called multiple times, right? You got it at the beginning and then you have it at the end. And just like I'd shown here, where towards the end of your installs, you're actually going back to the auto attend again to call the PowerShell scripts. So yeah, I would say knowing autounattend.xml, being comfortable editing configuration files with VS Code, or in my case, I'm using Notepad 3, and then PowerShell, because you will probably want to take the PowerShell scripts that I included, the 3 of them, and edit them. So as a starting point, those would be the three things. Yeah.
Okay, that's all the questions there, Owen.
All right, thanks for those are good questions. Yeah.
All right, are we ready to get our trivia question going?
Yeah, is it me who asked it or you?
I have it. Yeah, just as long as you help me. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put a trivia question up on the screen. Let me get it up. And then the first 3 people to get the right answer in the chat will win a CUGC t-shirt. So let me get that up for you. So I just need to keep
Minimize
eyes.
so that people don't have the answer.
Yeah. Share this window. All right. Ready? All right. First 3 people.
It was
think
at
I've
105 that I mentioned it, so I don't know.
everybody's saying the same thing, so I think. All right, so it looks like Eric and I don't know about that one. So Eric, Bird, Michael Legrand, I'm just going down, and Billy Cormier. Hope I'm saying everybody's names right. All right, you guys.
Like a local guy.
I'm gonna put basically just want you to email me, Stephanie. I'll put it in the chat right now. Second, Stephanie.Boozer. All right, just email me the size and your address for shipping, and if it's international, I'll need a phone number as well. So if you'll stick that in the chat, I'll get that taken care of for you. And the correct answer was JSON. A lot of people there. All right, so we're almost done. Just a couple more things. Just a reminder to come on out to mycugc.org. Check out our events calendar, our discussion forums. There's lots of conversations out there. You can probably help someone, or maybe you have a question, but definitely go out there and take a look. If you're not part of your local group, go find your local group and join it. And even though we're not meeting in person right now, we're still meeting online. So it's a great place to come together with your fellow Citrix friends and discuss everything all about Citrix. So do that. We've got lots of blogs and more webinars and recordings, all that great stuff for you. And be sure to follow us on Twitter. That's where we put out our most pertinent information and fastest place to get news. And other than that, I am ready to release you all back to your day. I just want to thank you all for attending. Thank you, Owen, for coming to us with this webinar, and thank you, Leee, for taking all those questions. There was a lot of questions today.
Lots of other questions. Yeah, that was great. My pleasure.
Thanks for all the questions as well. It's good feedback. I wish I could see you, but it's void. Yeah, that was great.
Someday soon. All right, bye everyone. I hope you all stay happy, healthy, and safe, and we'll see you on another webinar again soon. Bye.
All right, have a good one. Bye-bye.